Good evening, everyone, and welcome to St Nicholas Church. For the few of those among us who don't know me, I'm Anne. I'm one of the church wardens of St Nicholas here, and you're all very welcome this evening. Just a couple of housekeeping notices before we start. The toilets, if you aren't aware, if you need to go, just round that way, follow the corridor round, and you'll find a couple of toilets through there. We will be serving refreshments after the talk this evening, so you're welcome to stay for a cuppa. You're allowed to take these off while you're drinking and eating. You may have noticed the plate at the back by the font as you came in. We have recently received a quote for renovation of a number of our windows that's come in excess of £8,000. So we are really in need of some funds in order to repair our windows. So if you would like to make a donation, it will be gratefully received on the plate by the font at the back. Now, the gentleman I'm about to introduce to you was born in the village in 1932. He was baptised here in this church, and he's been a lifelong worshipper in our congregations. He joined the church choir at the age of 8, and he learned to ring the bells in 1951 when he was about 19. He served on our parochial church council for 50 years. That's 50 years. He was a church warden for a total of 29 years. He started carrying out repair, building and maintenance work on and in this building in 1946 after he left school. He still does things to this day, although we have had to ask him to stop climbing ladders in recent years. I can think of no better person to talk you through some of the history of this building than my dad, Doug Holloway.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'll do my best to put you in the picture over a few dates regarding the church. Thank you all for coming. We start off in 1086, Doomsday Book, which mentions a priest in Perry, and it's usually the case that when there's a priest in the village, there is a church as well, which would have been the chancel, which is this area of the church. Usually they had started off with the chancel end and then extended. So that would have been there almost certainly in 1086. The next piece to be built is the nave. This is the big piece here, which must have been built soon after the chancel, because the round pillar over there with the ornamental capital on the top of it, I bet not showing this because it might go in someone's eyes, that one there, dates from pre-1170, and that would have been put there because the north aisle was being built that side, and to put the arches through into the north aisle. So this must have been here pre-1170, the nave, and the north aisle would have been built then. Where we got to? In the chancel, there is a double piscina. Piscina is the sink where to tip the holy water down. There's a double one there. The lower one is the same date, similar date to the round column there. I'll tell more about the chancel one later on when we get onto the reordering, actually. The clerestory windows, the high piece in the nave here, would have been put in probably about the 16th century. We don't know the date of that, but the roof of the nave would have been at a lower level. You can see a setback in the wall there. Probably the eaves of it were at that level, just above these arches, before that was built. The roof was at a lower level then, and I think that people always ask about the little built-up archway over in the tower there, and I think that was probably a door that led out onto the ridge of the roof of the nave, because it's only bricked up, and inside the brickwork there remain some hinge hooks for a door. So I think that was a doorway out from the first floor of the tower onto the roof. Now, the south aisle was added in the 14th century. That's this area. And it's interesting to note that each end where the arches spring from, there's a face carved there and one just here. This is a lady and that one's a gentleman. And we wonder whether they may have been the lord and lady of the manor who put in this south aisle. I've noticed also that the pillars, these two pillars, must have been built in slightly the wrong position because the arches spring from them a bit off-centre, each one. You see, they'd have been made separately, the arches on the ground, and then when they went to put them on, they found they'd built the pillars a bit wrong. Now, the tower, that dates from the 14th century. It was built to accommodate a spire. There were arches in the top corners of the tower to take a spire, but as far as we know, that was never added. Probably good with the cost of things these days. The tower is 84 feet high, and there are 94 steps in the spiral staircase up to it. There's a very lofty arch from the tower into the nave, which was at one time bricked up. That's the big arch at the back here. And a minstrel's gallery was in front of it. The bells in the tower, there are now 6 bells in the tower. The oldest is the 3rd bell, which is quite rare, predating the Reformation, during which time many were destroyed. It dates from 1479 or 1480 and was cast by Thomas Harris, Harries, who was casting bells at this time. It doesn't bear a date, but it has the initials HT, and it's thought that he got them reversed when he cast the bell, got his initials reversed. And he did cast another bell at Blatherwick in the north of Northamptonshire. That's a redundant church now. The bells were augmented to 6, there were 5 before. In 1951, the treble was cast by tailors in 1951. The second bell was cast by Emerton in 1774. The third was Thomas Harris, 1479-1480. The fourth was by Bryant in 1792. And the fifth and the tenor were recast by Warners in 1885. The bells were rehung on a steel frame in 1951 by tailors of Loughborough. There is a slice of the old oak bell frame displayed in the ringing chamber in the back there. You have to go in there to see it. It's got carved on it. These bells rehung in 1848, and J.P. Freeman and W. Gallard, they were church wardens at the time. They'd carved that into the bell frame, and when they were rehung, we had that sliced off to display in the tower there. The church clock was restored by Jonathan Walker of London and installed here in 1887 to mark Queen Victoria's Jubilee. The clockworks are well over 200 years old. There was a clock here before this one, and the face was in the east side of the tower, which was this side, facing out towards the old vicarage in Church End. The main support beam of the tower, tower roof, bears the inscription, Allen, Lord Bathurst, 1796, and Henry Sanders, carpenter. I found this out when the weather vane that was put there in 1848 was fixed to a wooden post, and the post had rotted. And 1971, I had the job with the village blacksmith, John Smith, of repairing that. And we took the wooden post away, which had a bolt running straight right down the centre of it, which was about 10 feet long. How they drilled down the centre of the timber to put a bolt through, I don't know, but that went through the main beam of the tower roof and was bolted there with some stays on it. And it was replaced with a 2-inch steel pipe that John welded to the cast iron weather vane top. And that's when I found out I had to scaffold over the top of the bells to get to it, to bolt it on. And that's when I found the carving on, the 1796 carving on there. The weather vane on the tower bears the initials JPF and WG, which is the Churchwarden's 1848, and it has the date 1848 on it. It's like a fretwork copper vane. They were Churchwardens at the time, as I said before. The porch was rebuilt in 1848 in the same style as the previous one. In 1848, a very large reordering of the church took place. The church was re-roofed. Most of the timbers in the roof of this church in 1848. The north door was blocked up, which is over there, just past the John Hellings Memorial there. A gallery was installed at the rear of the church. In the plasterwork, you can see a slope in the plasterwork there, below that window. That's where the gallery was. And the window, a ventilated window, was put in there at that time. This was to accommodate, at that time there was no church at Yardley Gobion, and the workhouse was at Yardley Gobion. The gallery was put there to accommodate the workhouse inmates. And the Duke of Grafton used to sit with his family in the chancel, so no doubt they put the workhouse people quite a way away. For some reason, I'm not sure why. After 1864, I've got some more 1848 yet. The nave was lengthened in 1848. It used to finish just here. It was extended into the chancel to accommodate all the people. This tripartite arch was built then, and that was installed. The work was done by, name's gone. Anyway, they were stonemasons from Blisworth who owned Blisworth Stone Quarry. Before that, there was a rood screen across here, over to where I am, from that big column there. The other side of that, it's a job to see, is a built-up doorway with some steps going up into it. There must have been a spiral staircase up in that column leading to the rood screen across here. The organ in 1848 was at the far end of the north aisle. It's a very long north aisle, which is right up to where that iron gate is, the other side of those two arches. The organ was there, and the choir sat in front of the organ behind those arches. The Duke and all his entourage sat in the chancel. The 14th century font was moved to its present position in 1848. It was previously by a column, but I don't know which column. Under the floors of the aisles, there was an aisle, the centre aisle, of course, down here, before the reordering, before the recent reordering, an aisle across from the main door, straight across the church, there was a north aisle and a south aisle. And in 1848, they must have put a hypercaust heating system in there because there were brick channels underneath the aisles, all the way around each aisle, going up and down each aisle. And when we reordered in 1991, we found that, and it was all soot stained inside it. So obviously the fire had gone round there to heat the church. In 1864, the Chapel of Ease was built at Yardley. And after this, the West Gallery was removed as the workhouse people went to St Leonard's. In 1869, a new vestry was built in the corner of the north aisle and the chancel, that's out through below that far end window on the left-hand side there. The chancel, they built the chancel access arch where the iron gates are, through there. They built up the original chancel door, which was very low, further this way than the present one, and they put the taller one in just further on. The oak pews for the Duke and the priests were put into the chancel then. Make sure I don't miss something. Yeah. In 1885, the Boyle House was built outside the North Aisle, between the North Aisle and the Tower, in that corner there, and a new Baker Perkins high-pressure oil coke-fired heating system was installed. This was converted to oil firing in 1964, and in 1981 changed to gas firing. The stained glass. Soon after 1900, the Duchess of Grafton had the patterned stained glass put into the clear-story windows, which are the windows all around the top here. They were probably clear glass before that. In 1990, the next stained glass window was 1919, the War Memorial window, the east end of the South Aisle. It depicts the crucifixion, and it has an inscription on the window about it being for the memorial, and all the names of those who fell in the 1914-18 war were painted on the wooden panelling below it. And then in 1945, the 39-45 war dead were painted on there, added to it. So that is the war memorial for the village. They decided to put it in the church and have a window put in instead of a cross outside. The three windows in the north aisle depicting parables, they were given by a former vicar, Walter Plant. Walter Plant was here from 1897 until 1920. He then, when he retired from here, moved to India as a missionary. And when he came back in the early 1930s, he decided to give some windows to this church. The first one was "Suffer the little children to come unto me," which is behind the organ there. That was put in memory of his wife, and it was made in 1939. They'd got it ready, but then the war was declared, and all work was stopped through the war. But permission was given to install it in 1940. The next window along, the next one you can see there, that is the Good Shepherd. It was in 1946 he had that put in, and that was to mark his ministry in this village. And then the sewer window, which is the other end there, was in 1947 he had that put in, and that was in the remembrance of all the band of Sunday school teachers that were here during his ministry. The east window in the chancel, depicting the resurrection, was also given by Walter Plant. He unfortunately died just before the dedication, which he was due to attend in 1950. So he gave a great deal of lovely windows to our church here. At the west end of the south aisle, the craftsman window, which you can see a bit because the floodlights are lighting it a bit, that was installed in 1997. The lead on that window was in very poor condition, and every time it rained with a southwest wind, it would run down the wall, it'd come through. And my wife and I celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary in September 1997. And we decided it needed a new window there, so we put that craftsman window in. For the millennium, the village celebrated by raising the funds to install the nativity window, which is here in the south aisle. We were quite surprised, actually. We wrote a letter to every household in the village asking if they would all give £5 a week for a month or something like that. I can't remember what it was. We'd worked out what the cost would be. And surprisingly, we raised the money within about 3 weeks to put that window in. And the names of all those who gave towards that window are on the list just below it there. 1991, we started another big reordering. We removed all the pews. They were box pews on wooden platforms with an 18-inch gap underneath the platforms there. They were all pitch pine, not pitch pine, they were just ordinary pine, very worm-eaten, and some of the floors, one or two of the floors had been renewed over the years, but there were two places at the back of the nave there, and in this section where we are here, were getting very poor, liable to let people through the floor. And so we decided to remove all those, reorder it, and make it more usable with comfortable seating. When the people who took the pews out came to take them out, they fell through the floors, actually. So it was rather dangerous. But we wanted to make the church really more usable. We took all those out, filled all of the space up with hogging. We built up the two arches there. The organ was, with its keyboard, after the Duke had left, this was used for the choir, so they moved the organ with the keyboard back to the choir in that second arch. But then, for the reordering, we wanted to make a kitchen and toilets. That was the main reason for doing it. And we blocked up the two arches there, rebuilt the organ in its present position here, and got a kitchen, two toilets, and a meeting room above them there. We repaved all the floor right through, and any old slabs that we took from the original aisles, we had to put in one position all at the back near to the font and across that area, so that they didn't look odd little patches here and there all around the church. The total cost of that reordering was £82,000. The history of financing that was in the 1930s, there used to be a curate at Yardley, and in the 1930s there was a lady from Pottersbury, Miss Butterfield, who it said was rather sweet on the curate. So she had a new house built for him in Yardley Gobion. And the curates lived in that house until the 1950s. But then no more curates came along. And in the deeds, it was stipulated that it could be used by a vicar or a schoolmaster. Otherwise, it had to be sold. Well, the Reverend Chubb, when he came, lived in it for 3 years, and then Mr. Lawson, who was schoolmaster at Yardley Gobion, he lived in it until he retired. Then the new schoolmaster at Yardley didn't want the house, so it was left. We had to sell it because we couldn't let it to anyone. With the proceeds of that, we bought the old school at Yardley Gobion when they built the new one. That belonged to the Duke of Grafton, actually, the old school, and we bought it off the Duke of Grafton's estate. And we used that for quite a number of years, right into the 1970s, and it was getting rather dilapidated. We let it out to people, but not at a profit at all. It needed a new heating system, needed a new roof, lots of work done to it. So we decided to sell it for development and to use the money to refurbish this church and Yardley Church, to reorder both churches. The Chancellor of the Diocese insisted that we did one church first and then the other one, so we didn't get both of them half finished. And so we carried on with this church. It was held up for 12 months because of objections to the reordering. And in that time, luckily, the interest rate was 14%. So the capital built up quite well. And we had enough to do this church, and we had enough left over to do all the Yardley Church as well. But similar to the situation here, Yardley people on the PCC there, didn't agree with the committee. We had a committee from both villages for all the reordering, and some of the people on the PCC there didn't agree with our ideas of removing pews and doing what we were going to do. And they held on for about 10 years, or might have been more than that, might have been 15 years. And the money left then, of course, with inflation, only allowed them to put a small kitchen and toilet on the back instead of doing the reordering inside the church. So that's where the money came from for the reordering here. When we started on the work here, the first job was to put the drainage and water into the church. We had to dig right across the churchyard from near the old mill to the toilets and kitchen up this end, and bring water in from the end of Church Lane there. It was quite a large job we did, but it started in January of 1991 and finished in June, and we had the rededication in September that year. We have now, of course, lovely kitchen and toilets, and comfortable seats to sit in. The iron gates leading through into the kitchen area were given, and this altar, this yew altar, were given by Bob Wintle, actually, in memory of his wife. The altar was made by a joinery firm from Northampton. we asked them if they could do it, and they said, "Oh, would you like or not?" And he said they went to this because they'd had a representative come round from a timber merchants, say they'd got some yew. They went to this huge timber yard, and there was this tiny little stack of yew there. They just managed to get enough to make the altar for us. So that was made then. The altar in the sanctuary there, the far end altar, the oak altar there, used to be in this area here below the memorial window, but that was moved, so we had that altar up there and this central altar to use for main services. I think that's about all I have to say about the history of it, really. If there are any questions, or if we can mingle when we have a cup of tea, you could ask anything if you wish. Yeah.
I think if anybody's got any questions, it would probably be best to ask now so we can all...
Well, yeah, except I'm a bit hard of hearing, and with masks it's difficult.
Are there any questions at all? You've got such a wealth of knowledge. I'm sure you can answer anything. Mr. Dean.
Which bell chimes the hour?
The tenor bell, the big one. Yes.
How old is that one?
How old's that one? Well, that was recast in 1885. Yeah, we don't know how old it was before that. We don't know details of that. Yeah.
The bell casting in your garden?
Yes, yeah. None of these bells were cast in our garden. Yeah. That was. Forget his name now. I haven't written that down. No. Yeah. That was 1660 or something round about that age. There was a bell founder rented my garden for casting bells, and I'm not sure whether it's Livingston Lovell or Livingston Darrell. There's one of his bells there that was cast at Pottersbury. Yeah. Mm. Sorry, take your mask off.
There's a small lad, on that window. Isn't that you?
Yeah. Ah, well, yes. He did do the artist did do a drawing of me, of Joseph holding the curtain up there, but it changed. It was quite a good likeness when he did I've got the drawing at home tucked away, but the time it's gone from him through to the stained glass artist, and that things change. But the shepherds that are coming to the window there, the leading one of those was Bill Yates, who was a shepherd, lived at Dadford. He was a bell ringer, and his son lives at Toaster now. He was a bell ringer here and lay reader here, but he's quite poorly at the moment. But I had to go and take a picture of Bill over at Dadford for the artist to draw that. And the other shepherd behind him with the beard was a shepherd who worked on the estate where the artist lives. Yeah. And I don't know for sure, at the time he was designing that, his wife had a baby. And I wonder whether that was her and the baby, because it was about that time. Yeah. If so, baby Jesus is a little girl. Yes.
Could you run us through the three vicarages that we know about?
Well, there was that one there. That was before me. It was back in the 1850s. When Beach House Farm was built, that ceased to be a vicarage, because the vicarage where Judith lives was the farmhouse for Beach House Farm. And then when they built Beach House Farmhouse, that was the changed into the vicarage. That was when the thatched one became an old vicarage. They moved up to what was the Beach House Farmhouse. Yeah. And then it was 1984 they built the new vicarage in Church Lane opposite me. Yeah, and sold that one. Not that I know of. Well, it might have been somebody put a name up there that they, well, yeah. It's got, yeah. No, it's got the vicarage name on it now. Old Vicarage, yeah. I've always called it the Old Vicarage, yeah. Yeah, and both new ones, if you can put it that way, are both vicarages, you see. Yeah, they are parsonage houses, actually. All vicarages are parsonage houses. Yeah.
While you're talking about vicarages, can you just illuminate people about why the new vicarage looks like it does?
Sorry, I
Why
can't.
does the new vicarage look like it does in immaculate stone?
Why does it look like it does?
Yeah.
Because they used the wrong sort of stone, didn't they?
I know the answer, but I just wanted to...
Yeah. When the,
The way I understand it was that somebody approved it with just one sample of a small piece of stone.
yes,
Sitting in toasting in the office.
yeah,
Until that point, forgot that we don't have yellow limestone.
yeah. Apparently it was Cowleys who built it, and they took a sample of stone to the planning office, and they approved it. And when they came to build it, they built a little sample wall first for the architect and the diocese to approve. And I thought, well, it's the wrong colour. It's not limestone. It's come from at Pittsford, I think it was, which is it's not pure ironstone, but it's getting that way. And so anyhow, it was all approved. And I said, what happened to the bit of stone that he put to the planning authority then? That was to the chap who was building the house. Oh, he says, I bet that's gone in someone's grave somewhere.
We are so lucky to have Doug and his fantastic memory and his wealth of knowledge. Oh, we've got another question.
Is there anything documented about, I mean, I know there's a historical book, apostrophe, but is there anything documented about that, all the information that you've got, or that you provide tonight? Is there anything?
No.
There is a brief leaflet, isn't there, on the history of the church?
Yeah, there's little bits of history, church histories,
For
yeah.
example, wouldn't it be good to have a little leaflet about because there are quite a lot of visitors to the church. In fact, there's a certain Helens who has recently visited the church, who has great connections with the village. But wouldn't it be good if, I think the windows are fascinating, the story behind all the windows. And I hope people will come back on a sunny day.
Yeah,
The windows
look at them.
are just
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
In here. But maybe just, a separate little one about the windows. And it would be good. I think we could work on that. Taken from
Well,
Doug has said today.
we did have some little leaflets, but we've run out now. and the window ones, unfortunately, we hadn't kept a copy to do some more copies of it, so we've got to start afresh, really. Peter's got some, yeah. Yeah.
And so if you think what digital camera technology was like back in those days, that's the quality of the pictures. So we're hoping that I or somebody will use those pictures so we can get modern technology produced in the leaflet. But the original
Yeah.
maybe a little project for the history group to work with
Yeah.
the church to produce something. Right, I think we should show
All
our
right.
appreciation to them for a fantastic.
Thank you.